Welcome to Grassroot Ohio, conversations with everyday people working on important issues here in Columbus and all around Ohio. I'm Carolyn Harding, and today I'm talking with Mia Lewis, organizer with the statewide ballot initiative, Citizens Not Politicians, to end gerrymandering in Ohio. Mia Lewis is Associate Director of Common Cause Ohio. She joined Common Cause during the push to pass 2018's anti-gerrymandering Issue 1, coordinating teams across Ohio to push for a yes vote. She comes from an organizing and educational background and is passionate about protecting and expanding the right to vote. On July 3rd, 731,306 petition signatures were turned into the Ohio Secretary of State's office for the Citizens Not Politicians Constitutional Amendment ballot initiative, where they will be validated by the Ohio Secretary of State and Ohio boards of elections in order to be placed on the November 5, 2024 ballot. As lead organizer of the statewide ballot initiative, Citizens Not Politicians, which would create an independent redistricting commission, talk about where we are today.
Yes. Well, we are in a great position. We are super excited. It was really exciting to turn in all those signatures and to feel pretty damn confident that we have enough signatures and we have enough counties. We need 413 and something valid signatures, and we need 44 counties. And so, after really decades of work, work on redistricting started in Ohio in the early 1980s. And there have been so many efforts, both efforts that failed and also efforts that succeeded, but never kind of came to fruition in the way that they should have. It's really exciting to be finally, once and for all, looking to establish a citizens redistricting commission that takes politicians entirely out of the process, and to feel like we are well on our way to getting that on the ballot, getting it passed in Ohio, and ending gerrymandering once and for all in Ohio. And I do want to say I work for Common Cause and I work with the Fair Districts Coalition. So, and we are pushing the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment. So, so many different organizations are working together to try to make sure we end gerrymandering in Ohio.
Well, every organization that cares about justice wants this to pass because there's fairness. It will become, the State House will become fair again.
Absolutely. Every single issue is connected to gerrymandering, whether you care. It really doesn't matter what kind of issue you care about. If you want your politicians, your elected officials to be responsive, if you want them to listen, if you want them to care about the things that you care about, instead of just caring about keeping themselves in power, and playing to the most extreme wings of their party, then you should care about gerrymandering. And so really a very disparate group of organizations are backing this initiative and working hard to make sure that we end gerrymandering in Ohio.
So when will these signatures be officially certified and cleared to be on the ballot?
Yeah, so it's kind of exciting. It was pretty exciting to actually deliver 810 banker boxes full of petitions to the Secretary of State's office. We took them inside and then we lined them up according to the 88 counties. We had petition signatures from all 88 counties. And then from there, they were sent out to the actual boards of elections in those 88 counties. And then the Secretary of State issued a directive that those signatures have to be finished going through them by July 18th. And then by July 23rd, the Secretary of State will determine whether or not we have enough signatures and whether we are approved for the ballot in November. And then actually by August 22nd, I believe, yes, August 22nd, we will have ballot language that we'll know what the ballot language will be for the amendment that will be on the ballot in November. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work going on in the boards of elections right now.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
And let's backtrack a bit because many Ohioans are painfully aware what gerrymandering is, yet it's always helpful to be reminded what is gerrymandering, Mia.
Yes. Great question. Gerrymandering, I like to say gerrymandering is cheating. Basically, it's drawing rigged maps to benefit yourself or your political party and not represent the voters. So it's politicians picking their voters in order to get a specific outcome. It's something that's done by both parties. It's really, really hard to resist. If you have the power to benefit yourself, it's really, really hard to resist using that power. It's like, think of like a kind of older brother and a very younger, innocent younger sibling, and the older brother is supposed to divide up the candy between of them, and he says, well, you get this one and I get all the rest of them. um, that's what it is. It's drawing the lines to benefit yourself and to keep yourself in power, really without regard to fairness or representation. And it's really it's been around for hundreds of years, unfortunately. But of course, it's just been getting worse because we can use now extremely powerful computer programs to basically go down house to house and decide how we're going to rig those maps to benefit ourselves. It's basically like, think about it like if you're a football team and instead of the 50-yard line being in the middle, it's like one of the teams being able to say, okay, well, we're going to put the 50-yard line down here at the 20-yard line, and we'll get to start there. But y'all have to start, y'all have, 80 yards that you have to do where we just have to do 20.
Yeah, we've been going through supermajority gerrymandered maps. Talk about how bad it is in Ohio with gerrymandering.
Right. Well, we're considered one of the 10 worst gerrymandered states. And it's pretty easy to see when you think about the fact that when we vote for statewide issues, when we vote for president or senator, we split about 45-55, Democrat, Republican. So you would expect that our congressional delegation and our state house, House of Representatives and Senate would be divided in a similar proportion, but they're not. And so we end up with, previously we had 16-4, and now we have 12-4 when we had 16 congressional representatives, and now we have 11-4 in our congressional delegation. And we end up in the Ohio State House, there's a supermajority. We've ended up with a situation where really, no matter what the minority party wants to do, it's practically irrelevant because the folks in the majority can do anything they want. They can override the governor. They really have no checks on their behavior or, what they choose to do. And that is extremely detrimental to all Ohioans, no matter what their political party.
I agree. And the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment was written in your website, would, number one, create the 15-member Ohio Citizens Redistricting Commission made up of Democratic, Republican, and independent citizens who broadly represent the different geographical areas and demographics of the state. Two, ban current or former politicians, political party officials, and lobbyists from sitting on the commission. Three, require fair and impartial districts by making it unconstitutional to draw voting districts that discriminate against or favor any political party or individual politician. And four, require the commission to operate under an open and independent process. Can you talk about this amendment? Because I read the preamble and a good chunk of it, and it's comprehensive. Can you talk about it?
Yes, that's a great word for it. It's comprehensive. This amendment was written with the benefit of having the experience of the nightmare that was the last couple of years as the Ohio Redistricting Commission, made up of politicians, put forward rigged map after rigged map after rigged map. And those maps 7 times were struck down by the Ohio Supreme Court. And what did they do? They just put back another rigged map. They ran out the clock. They did all of those things. They tried to get around their responsibility to obey the law, to obey the Constitution, to obey the Ohio Supreme Court, to respect the will of the people, all of those things. And, you know, this amendment was written both with that in mind, trying to make sure that we cut off, you know, we prevented the possibility of them running out the clock. We prevented the possibility of them ignoring the court. We prevented the possibility of, you know, all of those things. But it was also written with the benefit of many years' experience of successful independent citizens redistricting commissions that operate in other states across the country. And, you know, they're very varied. If you go and you take a look, for example, at the Brennan Center for Justice, you can look at the different kinds of commission, you know, a essay and information about the different kinds of commissions there are. They have different numbers of commissioners. The commissioners are elected in different ways. You know, they operate in different ways. And we've had the benefit of that experience to see what works well and what doesn't work so well. And so we've been able to put into the Ohio amendment all the best practices, you know, to have the best outcome and to make sure that we thwart efforts to, you know, not comply with the spirit of the law, which is to end gerrymandering. So, you know, I'm very relieved that this is comprehensive. It's not, you know, if you actually go through and read it, that's what it is. It's comprehensive. It's not complicated.
Okay. So Mia, if this ballot initiative is passed, constitutional amendment is passed in November, when would Ohio have new maps, fair maps?
Yes, great question. So if we win in November, which when we win in November,
Okay.
The commissioners would begin to be selected at the beginning of 2025. The commission would be established by, I think it's May 2025, and then they begin their work and they draw maps, which are then in use for the elections in 2026. And the reason that that is wonderful is because right now, if we didn't have that new change of commission, we wouldn't have fair maps until 2032, after the next census and then the next round of redistricting and the next round of map drawing. So this really does, you know, it changes, it brings us new maps more quickly, but it also, you know, it kind of builds on itself. Every time there's better maps in the future, there will be even better maps and even better maps as you know, the commission continues its work. And as the State House becomes a place that's less filled with extremists who are cut off from the needs and requirements of, you know, everyday Ohioans. I mean, you know, we have really a toxic environment there now where the State House is not serving anybody's needs, and they're always trying to outdo each other in extremism. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get that, you know, get that flushed out of the system, as it were, you know. And an interesting thing that about this, the way this amendment is written, it will be illegal, unconstitutional under this amendment to take into consideration the addresses of anyone, any incumbents. So it doesn't bow down to incumbents. That's really important. It doesn't say, oh, shoot, we can't have a district here because then so-and-so who's been in office for so many years would have to move, or he won't be able to run, or he'll have to change districts. No, it doesn't bow down to incumbents, which is really important.
This is Carolyn Harding with Grassroot Ohio, and I'm talking with Mia Lewis. She is an organizer with Citizens Not Politicians. It's a statewide ballot initiative that would end gerrymandering in Ohio. So, how long have you personally been working on fair maps in Ohio?
Well, I've really new to this compared to some people. I first started in 2017. And I think, a lot of people around that time were really worried about our democracy, and they wanted to do something that would establish fair rules for redistricting that would apply to all parties. It wasn't a partisan thing. That the nice thing about working on redistricting is it's really about shoring up our democracy and making our democracy more functional and more fair. It's not about, battling for one party or another. And so I collected a lot of signatures for the amendment we collected signatures, and then there was a compromise with the state legislature, and we ended up with an initiative that actually had come through the State House. And it did have good rules in it, and it was a step forward. Unfortunately, the people who were responsible for actually doing the map making didn't abide by the rules, and didn't respect the rules and didn't respect the court. And that's not something that we could necessarily have predicted. But it does give me great comfort that in this new amendment, that politicians are explicitly barred from participating in the commission. So we won't have that kind of, shenanigans again. Yeah.
Mia, I've worked on women's reproductive rights initiatives. I've worked on citywide environmental issues. I've worked on this issue. Why this issue for you over all the others?
Well, I think the appeal is, as I was saying before, is that it's something that establishes a system that will be fair and that will help to make our democracy more meaningful. It's really scary to think that we could be entering a phase where our democracy is really completely undermined and not functional. I mean, we've had a lot of problems with our democracy throughout our years, but at least we've felt that we were trying to get a grip on them, improve it, make elections fairer, make them more accessible. And now it feels like we're going in the opposite direction. And gerrymandering is one of the things that really undermines our democracy and makes people not really have a voice. And so, trying to solve that problem, I think is it's kind of foundational. It's the first thing you do before you do the other things, because you can't really make progress on the other things if if your maps aren't fair and if people don't have a voice.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So tell our listeners who have been the keenest workers and allies on this initiative drive. Let's talk about all these heroes and sheroes.
It's so many people, and that's really what makes my job a great pleasure. And I do have to just teeny tiny correct you. We're backing the Citizens Not Politicians amendment, but I want to make sure I'm not an employee of Citizens Not Politicians. I'm employee of Common Cause Ohio. But it's really the volunteers all over the state. I mean, it's groups of people. It's all the little local civic organizations. It's the league chapters. It's labor. It's churches. It's synagogues. It's faith groups of all kinds. It's individuals who just care about fairness or who are incredibly frustrated by the unresponsiveness of the folks in the State House. And so, and I will say the fact that we've been working on redistricting in Ohio for so many years means that we have a very educated population of people who care about the issue. The folks in other states are struggling to explain to their people what gerrymandering is. Now, of course, not everyone in Ohio knows what gerrymandering is, but a lot of them do. You'd be surprised how many do and how many care. Like when we first went out with collecting signatures for this amendment, people were just falling over themselves trying to sign because they'd been waiting. They'd been through the frustrations of the last couple of years. They knew that those maps were unfair and had been struck down by the court, and they wanted to take action.
Well, I met one of your volunteers a couple of years ago, and he said he would follow you to the ends of the universe in working on initiatives that you work on. So you are highly respected in working on this ballot initiative and all the ones that you have worked on. You're a very exceptional organizer. And as an organizer, I hear that all over the place. So I just want to honor your personal work, Mia. I know you work for Common Cause, and I know you're one of the many that have made this happen. But I think you need to know how much people have appreciated your work and your commitment to democracy.
Wow, that's so nice of you. I mean, of course, I feel every day lucky to be surrounded by so many people who are working so hard, both the people that are, where it's their job. And then I'm also just so amazed by the people who, it's not their job, but they behave as if it's their job. They get up and they work hard every day on these issues. We have people who've collected literally thousands of signatures. And honestly, they would, if we hadn't said stop, they would have kept going because they really care about this issue. And, and I will say that those signatures that volunteers get where they go out and they talk to their fellow voters about it, those are really important because people can see they care about the issue. They remind them that, you're signing now, but you're going to vote in November. And that's super important.
So tell me, how nonpartisan is this issue? I mean, I know it is nonpartisan. And how fun is that to work on a nonpartisan issue?
It's completely and entirely nonpartisan. This is about establishing rules that apply to everybody. It's not about somebody gaining advantage over someone else. It's about removing the possibility of anybody gaining advantage over anybody else. It's about establishing fairness and transparency. An incredible effort has gone into making sure that every part of this that there are checks and balances and that nobody can twist the outcome in their own to their own benefit. So I really appreciate that. For example, in the amendment itself, you have to have votes from all three groups, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, in order to move forward with any of the significant decisions that go towards making those maps. So that's incredibly important. So as I think we've talked about before, the State House is not functional no matter what you care about, no matter what party you are, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. You want politicians who are working for you and not working for their own benefit. And so, that's incredibly important to remember. It's also great to know that one of the most important leaders of this effort is retired former Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor, who is a registered Republican, who was the Republican lieutenant governor, who has been in elected office throughout her career as a Republican. And she had absolute upfront and close personal experience of the current Ohio Redistricting Commission simply thumbing their noses at the law, at the court, at the intent of the redistricting amendment that was passed in 2018. And she participated in striking down, those 7 maps that were struck down. And then she said, enough is enough. There's a better way to do this. Politicians are not the ones to be drawing the maps. Let's do something else. So I think that is really a great way of demonstrating how nonpartisan this effort is to say it's actually being led by a Republican, along with Democrats, of course, and independents.
Yeah, I was at some of those redistricting commission meetings, and it was just outrageous. The rigged situation, and our governor was in it, and the Senate president, and the House leader, and the Secretary of State Frank LaRose, and it just was blatant disregard of the law. And I was so respectful of former Justice Maureen O'Connor for sticking her neck out, because the rest of her party didn't in the Supreme Court, and sticking her neck out for fair maps.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very impressive to me and very democratic to me.
Absolutely. And I would like to also shine a spotlight on her fellow former Justice, Yvette McGee-Brown, who's a Democrat. And the two of them working together, I really think show that, you know, no matter what your political party, no matter what your kind of personal political beliefs are, you have to believe in our democratic system, and you have to care that our democratic system is functional, and gerrymandering is dysfunctional, and particularly when it's to this level, you know, that it completely distorts the outcome of elections. You know, as my boss Catherine Turser likes to say, the manipulation of district lines is the manipulation of elections, and the manipulation of elections is the manipulation of public policy. We're not talking about an abstract thing. We're talking about something which affects public policy. And that's just incredibly important. And so, yes, hats off to both Maureen O'Connor and Yvette McGee-Brown and all the other elected officials on both sides of the aisle who have, you know, come out and said, I mean, former elected officials, because that's mostly what we're talking about, you know, who said that we need to end this practice and strengthen our democracy.
Well, there is less than 4 months till Tuesday, November 5, Election Day. What needs to happen to secure a win for the Citizens Not Politicians constitutional amendment?
Yes, well, like you said, we turned in over 731,000 signatures, but we need 10 million Ohioans to know about this, and we need them to know that they need to vote yes, because it is true that the ballot board gets to write the language that will be on the amendment. When you go in to vote, there'll be some language there about the amendment, and you can bet that they're going to write it in a confusing and probably even misleading way. And so we need folks to know that they vote yes on what I am guessing will be issue 1, yes on the redistricting amendment, kind of regardless of what the language says. We need them to know that citizens, not politicians, need to be in charge of the redistricting process so that they can make it fair, and so that we can take back our power, you know, away from politicians who really just want to keep themselves in power. So what we need to do is spread the word about the amendment. If you have a shirt that says ban gerrymandering, wear it everywhere, start conversations. If you have a button, if you have a sticker, write letters to the editor. You can, you know, I'll hook you up with some flyers and other materials that you can distribute. You know, go and table at events. Actually, we have a speakers bureau. You can ask for a speaker to come and talk to your book club, your knitting group, your choir, whatever organization you're a part of, you know, just a group of neighbors. We'd love to come and talk to you about gerrymandering, so that every single Ohioan, when we get to November 5, actually, when we get to the start of early vote in, you know, the beginning of October, that they know about this and that they are just ready to go in there and vote yes.
So where can folks get more information and to sign up to help?
Yeah, so if you go to fairdistrictsohio.org, you can sign up to volunteer. You can get more information. You can also go to the Citizens Not Politicians website, and that's citizensnotpoliticians.org. So either one of those, the fair districts are, you know, is Common Cause and League and other groups are, you know, working to back the amendment, but you can also go to the Citizens Not Politicians amendment. There's sign up to volunteer on both sites. I'm also happy to have folks contact me directly. That's mlewis@commoncause.org. I'd be happy to let you know how you can get involved. It's really important. It's something we should all care about. You know, democracy has its flaws, but it's better than the alternatives, and we have to make sure that it's functional so that people feel that their voice is important.
All right, Mia, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Grassroot Ohio Radio Podcast with Mia Lewis, organizer with the Citizens Not Politicians statewide ballot initiative to end gerrymandering in Ohio. In addition to our Friday 5 p.m. broadcast, 91.9 FM, WGRN.org, Grassroot Ohio airs on Sundays at 2 p.m. at 92.7, 98.3 FM, WCRSFM.org. You can find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks for joining us.